Serious, side chicks dudes of Reddit. Why? I was 18, she was maybe 35. She would pick me up from my subway job in her nice car, take me everywhere, let me do anything I wanted. Said her husband was old and didn't give a crap even if he found out. I just honestly didn't care. She ended up finding another guy closer to her age and leaving her husband for him. I was heartbroken she didn't pick me. The other guy probably was financially stable already and younger than her husband. That's the only way she would actually leave him. But make no mistake, she will cheat on her new guy again, and then on the next, and so on. I would take the temporary heartbroken pain over long-term never-ending heartbroken pain anytime. I was young. She was an older married woman at work and I was stupid. At first I just thought she liked me, and it was no strings attached fun. Then suddenly she told me she had a husband and somehow I believed her when she was gonna leave her husband to be with me. I wasn't even sure if I wanted that, but went with it. Cause, young and stupid. The delusion only lasted a few weeks. He showed up at work to pick her up, and I met him, and was like, what the frick am I doing to this dude? And that was the end of it. I couldn't handle that crap. I felt terrible for what I'd done. Was one a few years ago for one occurrence. She said they were in an open relationship and that he got off to videos of her banging dudes. The day after we hooked up he blew up my phone threatening to kick my butt. She was not in an open relationship. Sounds like you both were the unwitting participants in her fetish that she was projecting. Ex-side dude. It's because I was selfish, young, and short-sighted. You can dress it up with rationalizations, but at the end of the day if you know what you're doing, then you share the blame. Huh, that's interesting. While I have never been the side dude, but instead the main dude when there was a side dude, I never, not for a second, blamed the side dude. I always view it as my ex made the conscious choice to go for him. She could have backed off or ended things with me anytime. Unaware of anyone else in the picture. Thought it was just her and I. Halfway through our time together found out there was someone else, but she said it wasn't serious and it was already over. We cooled off for a bit, took a break, then resumed dating. Our relationship eventually ran its course and ended with no hard feelings. Moved across the country. It wasn't until later on I found out that the other guy was in fact her fiance. I was the side piece. I was young, selfish, and figured their marriage woes were not my problem. They must have had issues or he wouldn't be in the game, right? Besides, it wasn't serious, we were just fooling around. That's how I rationalized it anyway, until I met his wife. She was actually a really sweet person, and if they hadn't been this giant awkward elephant in the room, I might actually have become friends with her. It had been a lark for me, but it was her whole world I was messing with, and she was hurt. I'm pretty sure she knew. That was it for me. I felt like the biggest cockroach in creation. I called it off immediately and later transferred to another office when he seemed less than willing to let it go. Before long, he got caught with yet another woman and they ended up getting divorced anyway. I still regret my part in it. I was the side dude. She and I met in high school, despite going to different schools, and ended up going to the same college. We fooled around a little bit freshman year, but that was it, and we go our separate ways until we, by chance, ended up in the same section of the same class a few years later. We start studying together between classes and she catches me up on her life. Long story short, her family went nuclear when she started an unorthodox relationship and the fallout led to financial woes which led to marriage. LOL, yeah, that's a drastic turn of events but also a story in its own right, so I'll leave it at that. Anyhow, this is about a year after the whole thing went down and now this old friend of mine is in a pickle, married and living with someone she wasn't in love with. It's a borderline abusive relationship. She has no friends or familial support and no money to divorce and move out. Naturally, I start providing that support, and over the next few months I help her get on her feet a little bit. Unfortunately, by this time our relationship has become a little intimate, and by little I mean a lot. Once we knew it wasn't going to be a one-time fling, we had a talk about what was going on with us and with her spouse. She decides to file for divorce and move in with me as soon as she can, and we continue seeing each other for a couple of months until that plan actually happens. At that point I'm no longer the side piece. We date for about another 6 months and then, somewhat, peaceably break up. End of story. Well, that de-escalated smoothly. Sometimes you end up going home with your boyfriend and after freaking out because his wedding picture is hanging on the wall, all he has to say is, "I thought you knew." Didn't know the entire 18 months we were dating that he also had a girlfriend of 5 years. I told her. She decided to stay with him. And he's in jail now, so I think I came out of that situation okay. I came here to read these comments to see how people could be so cruel and terrible. Not that long ago I came home from work to a naked girl in my bed and my boyfriend was just gone. We had recently had a child together. I left him. He never apologized or acted like he had did anything wrong. He's still with that girl and has bailed on parental responsibilities. I've had so much anger and hate inside me and never been able to grasp how people could do that to other people. I hated her guts and I don't even know her. I'm sure he told that girl we were broken up and I was crazy or so on and so forth. It's nice to get some insight. She probably didn't know. It's so easy to blame the other person instead of the piece of crap who knowingly cheated. You know, cause he would never do that to me. She must have seduced him on purpose. Whatever. Thank you, Reddit. If he doesn't pay child support, get a lawyer and find that mofo. Married 20 years to my high school sweetheart. Found out he was involved in a 3-year affair with a co-worker when my daughter's friend caught them out together. I confronted him. He denied it repeatedly. I believed him. Fast forward 3 months. He finally confessed when he told me it was over between them and he begged my forgiveness. Several months go by. I catch him sneaking off to meet her and confronted him. He begged me not to tell her husband because they were acquaintances and he was violent. I believed him but contacted his side chick and asked to meet up. We met. She denied any sexual involvement until confronted with the evidence I had, then claimed no current involvement with him. I did not believe her or him after that, but he kept coming around, saying he loved me and asking for reconciliation. I agreed, just so I could plan the divorce and be the side chick in his relationship with Wagerface. We divorced 6 months later. She dumped him. I am happy. You go, you beautiful human. May you find a new sweetheart worth keeping. Take care of her mental health. Talk about it and keep being happy. I was an original numero uno, but after my divorce became the side chick for a little while. The reason was nostalgia. I wasn't in the best spot in my life. Just got out of an abusive relationship. I had been humiliated during sex for the past several months and I needed someone to want me. He had cheated on his previous wife with his current wife, so I didn't feel bad about allowing him to cheat on his current wife with me. I didn't care about anyone at that moment and I was getting decent sex. Dat name though. Moved to Australia to work for the summer and got super close with a girl from work. We would hang out just about every day, but I knew she had a boyfriend so never thought anything more of it. After a couple weeks things were getting more and more intimate between us and eventually led to hooking up and staying over at her apartment a number of times. I felt awful but justified it by knowing I never made a move on her, and it was her choice to go through with it. It was weighing heavy on my conscience, so I told her while she was in a relationship we couldn't continue hooking up. She told me that she was planning on breaking up with her boyfriend, which made me feel slightly better. A couple days later she told me she broke up with him, so we got back to hooking up, only for me to find out at the end of the summer just before I flew back to Canada. They never actually broke up. My first time being in a situation like this and would definitely never voluntarily go through that again. In the gay world, this is much more of a gray area. Open relationships are common, to the point where if you meet someone on Grindr who says that they're in a relationship, it's natural to assume that it's an open one, because Grindr is a sex app. Yes, some guys go on there to meet people to date, but if we're all being real, it's to find that. I met this guy who I fooled around with, and we had such a great time we figured we'd do it again. Again turned into an ongoing tryst, where we'd text each other at least once a week to meet up. One time at his place, we heard the door open. Obviously I hadn't met his partner yet, and was under the impression that he was always traveling for work. My thoughts were, well, this is going to either get really awkward or really great. 3 is company again. Gay world is different. The guy I'm with freaks out though, and I then realize that something is wrong. I'm thinking that maybe a relative of his dropped by or something, like his mother popping in. You already know how this actually went down. But I was so naive until he started throwing clothes at me and telling me I needed to slip out the back as he distracted his partner. What's fricked is that he had the nerve to reach out after 1. To clarify and apologize. Cool, I accepted it. But 2. To see if I wanted to come over again. I never texted back. His dong was good, but it wasn't that good. By B. A gay friend somehow negotiated a grandfather clause in his relationship. He is allowed to screw around with other guys as long as he had sex previously with that person before he got married. Then there is the area code clause. That is, he can sleep with other men as long as his partner is in another area code, usually for business. I am simultaneously horrified and impressed. I was pretty low for a while after my ex-wife and I split up. I had been cheated on and I had a pretty drastic change in heart about how I felt about hooking up with someone who was married, given things that had gone down in my own relationship. Came to feel like, if me hooking up with a married woman was a problem, it was a problem between the husband and wife, and their marriage. I felt like if the woman had decided to sleep around she was going to do it, so it might as well be with me. I don't do that anymore, but I don't think it's because I've fixed my point of view. I was hooking up with a lot of crappy people and decided to stop that behavior, and came to realize most folks that would cheat on a spouse are crappy people. Pretty jaded on relationships and people in general these days. This is a really horrible story. Started seeing a guy and right off the bat he lied about women he was hooking up with. Broke things off with him because I didn't want the drama I was getting roped into unknowingly. But we actually clicked as friends, so we still talked. I then started dating an alcoholic who did some not so nice things to me. The first guy was the only one who believed me and helped me through the rough patch. Stupid me started seeking physical comfort from my self-confessed man W of a friend. The alcoholic ex found out and lightly stalked me and had a major blow up and confronted me and my friend. That is how I found I was the side chick from my psycho ex. This whole series of events has killed my self-esteem. I feel like garbage. I still keep going back to the friend even though I know I'm the side piece. I've tried dating but new men scare the crap out of me. I've cried about it. I've tried reasoning the guilty feelings away. I have even thought of killing myself over it. It's a sad and lonely life. And I have been dealing with this for 7 years. You get to the point where you think so little of yourself and you think this kind of relationship is all you are good enough for. It's a really ugly cycle. The top comments made me feel pretty good about humanity and their morals despite past mistakes. Then I kept scrolling. The more I read these posts, the more I realize that the commonality is that either the posters are liars, or they let liars lie to them and either ignore the implications or are so far down the rabbit hole that they don't give a crap anymore. Moral of the story: don't lie. If you lie, you'll be surrounded by liars. Easiest way to freak up your life. I was the side dude for a while. She wasn't ever totally clear what her arrangement with her boyfriend was, and I liked fricking her no strings attached. Turns out she was full on cheating on him. Oh well, she violated his trust, not me. I'll see you at the bottom. Because I hate myself and don't think I deserve better than being second choice, not having someone commit to me. And I'm a selfish piece of crap human being. I began casually dating a guy who told me he was in an open relationship with a girl who was in a different country. They had apparently decided to become open because she was going to be gone for a year or two. After hanging out a few times, he started to really like me. So I told him that he needed to inform his girlfriend that he had met someone else. Which shouldn't have been a big deal since they were open and she even gave him permission to move on. Well, after he told her, I learned some crap about her. She was a 17-year-old high school dropout traveling in Thailand for her spiritual journey or whatever, and I started getting these messages like, ha don't frick my boyfriend K. I was 20 going on 21 and beyond, that kind of crap. He then started telling me all this nasty crap she was saying about me, saying that I looked like a 12-year-old. She was actually a child. The relationship endured for like 4 months of this girl going back and forth between dumping him and wanting him back as soon as he was with me, and he'd always go back. All of his friends and family started treating me and talking to me like the other girl, and I'd be informed constantly how much cooler his on again off again ex was. I was only ever with him when they were off. He even compared me to her physically. It was one of the most emotionally abusive rides I've ever been though, and at the end of it he and his friends called me an abusive psychopath for just wanting him to admit what he did. He knew I was naive and that I liked him and that I was vulnerable after coming out of a previous abusive relationship. So, I was used as a cash cow when he was off with a girlfriend. A whole Facebook status was made about how I'm mentally ill and abused him. I did it because I had no self-esteem and I wanted him to care about me. Manipulative people feed on that. I was a teenager when I met him and he was my first love, nearly 10 years older. We just clicked. It's sick. But for me he was a drug and I was the addict. It really came down to being deeply in love with him and being unable to walk away when I truly believed love would conquer all. After 4 years, he finally got a divorce, promptly married another woman, and our relationship ended badly with my broken heart. He and I are both happily married to other people now and speak briefly maybe once a year if that. We still have too much sexual tension and unresolved feelings between us to be cordial. Married adult creeping on a teenager behind his wife's back. The classic American love story. This guy should run for office. The guy was a snobby rich douchebag who would snarkily look down on people who were poorer than him. Not an intimidating guy by any means. I would consider him more of a bratty nuisance than a bully. Anyways, given that I was raised by a single immigrant mom, he once remarked that life must really suck for me since I had to take out loans to go to school. So when the opportunity came knocking and presented me the chance to repeatedly sleep with his girlfriend over and over while they were living together, I hopped all over it. There was something very rewarding about the fact I got my jizz all over his bedsheet several times. You went from zero to fricking his girl in one sentence. Was an unwitting side dude years ago. Tons of flirting and intimate conversations, but no sex. She said she just wanted someone who could give her the emotional support her boyfriend couldn't give. Told her to go away. She offered sex. I left her cheating butt, and now she's a fulfilled single and successful in her field while I'm a graphic designer with crippling depression. At least you got your integrity. She was hot as heck and real MILF. She had a kid around my age, 25, at the time, but her marriage was falling apart. She wanted a young boy toy and me being fresh out of college still living with my parents had no problem meeting her at a hotel room and going wild all night. Still the best sex I've had almost a decade later. To summarize it all, he tried to hide his relationship status on MySpace with codes and told me his fiancée was his sister. I was heavily into codes at the time and pretty much took apart his page after reviewing the HTML format I took from his page. Nothing but I love you and I miss you baby comments BTWN each other. I messaged her asking who he is to her and she told me her fiancé, then she wanted to fight me but I blocked her. He called me crying saying he was going to leave her for me. When I asked him, "Are you done?" because he was crying on the phone, he said, "I am throwing everything away for you and this is how you act, you cold-hearted b." I hanged up and went about my life. I did like him, but after all that I felt like I wasted time. My sister laughs at me from time to time BC of what I said and how I act like he didn't exist after hanging up. Because we are older. Because we have been married to our spouses for over 20 years. Because he is his wife's caregiver. Because she hasn't been capable of having sex for over a decade and their lives revolve around her incurable pain and the $5 chemo and medical expenses. Because he is desperate and exhausted trying to beat down the demons that have hollowed out his spouse and marriage. Because for those few hours, he can be taken care of and take shelter from the howling chaos and crushing responsibility of his full-time life. Me? Because my spouse developed ED at 38 and became annoyed with providing sex and affection, and suggested that if I stupidly insist on such things, I should go find them elsewhere. He seems relieved and says we're sexually incompatible and always were, that women demand too much, that there's only so much you can learn about a person before you know it all and get bored. Kids are nearly fledged and I'm re-establishing a career. Time to plot a new course. My side dude is my life preserver, and I am his. I didn't know I was the side chick until several weeks after I dumped him for something else entirely. Turns out, He'd been dating and got married to another girl. I feel like an idiot for not having figured it out sooner, but I think part of me didn't want to look too deeply into the weird stuff he did. Glad I got out of it on my own terms now. I was the side chick with a guy in an open relationship. I had been single and painfully low on confidence for so long that I needed some way to get myself back out there without worrying about emotional commitment. Thus, when I found him on Tinder and saw that he was in an open relationship, I went for it anyway, knowing I'd have a good FWB relationship for a while. And it worked. I never grew feelings for him and made a friend for a good time. It seems like people don't really understand open relationships. Granted, I have only been a part of that one, but they have been open for a long time. And here is what I have learned. An open relationship requires the couple to fully discuss and agree to the terms. For example, this guy told me that the rules for his relationship were no overnights, always use condoms, and always tell the other person where they're going with their side dates. Additionally, once one of them decided they needed to cut off their outside relationships, they did with no questions asked, and they did. One day we were having fun and the next he had to tell me he couldn't see me anymore. I understood because everyone was upfront and agreed to the rules ahead of time. People in open relationships have something that people in exclusive relationships often don't, which is the ability to communicate honestly with each other. They can separate sex and love because they still have each other's hearts and get off on their partner's pleasure. Any red flags will come from a lack of honesty or a disrespect for the rules, not because of the open relationship itself. I disagree about the people in exclusive relationships not being able to communicate properly. The more open relationships I've been in have usually resulted in broken down communication. Every relationship is unique. I was the side piece. Met this woman who managed a bar while I was out on another date. We hit it off when she tried to kick me out, and then she showed up to my workplace, which I managed to buy a printer. It lasted a while until I got evidence she was cheating. She told me it was her husband and that I was the side piece. I didn't care though. I felt like James friggin' Bond. Even showed up to her husband's little league game he coaches and shook his hand. But my guilt got the best of me and I decided to end it on our way to the Poconos before things got too serious. Hi Michael. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.